morning here for Liz and me over on the East and Levi over on the East Coast of the United States. And then of course it's early afternoon for our friend Catherine over in the UK. How are you ladies doing today?
Great.
I'm doing really good. It's a lovely, lovely sunny day here, and I've got my fire going in the background. So it's cold, but it's one of those lovely, cold, crisp winter days here. So the birds are out, the deer are out, nature's off foraging, and I'm in with my nice warm fire.
I feel like before we get into the show, I feel like such an energy shift has happened globally anyway, because it's just like one domino after the other keeps falling, and it's so exciting. And of course we're at a year anniversary mark, so that's quite interesting. So I hope that everybody watching is in just as a good mood as we are. I know last night my nose was running all night and my throat's a little scratchy this morning, and I feel like, do you guys remember back when you were like kids and you were younger and you were like studying for exams and you would study, and then you take the exam and then you'd be on break and you would get sick because all of a sudden your body just kind of relaxed? I feel like that's kind of happening to me right now. Like my body's starting to relax a little bit because it really feels like we're towards the end. So if I sneeze or have to cough, I apologize. But of course, this is episode number 3 of, again, this was all Catherine's idea, guys, to do this series on passions. And we know everyone's loving it because it's so motivating to hear from other people who have really cool stories and passions in life. And of course, we've talked to Mornay from Aquarius Rising Africa, David Zublik from the Dark Outpost, and now, as I've called her, the TikTok queen, Liz, but now she has maneuvered to YouTube as well. So we are here with Liz, and I know, Liz, you are so passionate. You have so many passions, and you live your life with such vibrancy. And I think that's why people are so attracted to you, and especially to your, what are you on round number 4 with TikTok?
Yeah, 4th account, yep.
4? So your first one had like 60,000 subscribers or followers?
Yeah, it was like, I think it was up to 65,000. Then it got booted permanently, taken down supposedly. Then I made another one, got up to like 12. That got taken down. Then I made another one. Then 2 weeks later, that one got taken down. So now I'm on the 4th.
And you also, and I'm just going to, before we get into your story, I'm just going to share a screen quickly so you guys can see. Liz is moving herself over to the YouTube platform as well. So this is her channel that she just opened. So if you're following Liz on TikTok, go ahead and subscribe to her on YouTube as well. I think at this point, I know Catherine and I both have backup channels on Rumble. And Catherine, are you still on BitChute as well too?
Well, I sort of am on BitChute, but I'm really behind with uploading the videos because I've got a website as well. So as a backup, because once you've had everything wiped off, you learn to do backups. But
you had that happen too, Catherine. So
I my first one just got wiped overnight. Yeah, Liz, can I say, are you hearing Liz all right, Brice? Because she's really quiet. Liz, you're really quiet to me on your mic.
I'm going off and on, turning it off and on because my toddler's making noise, so it might be extra quiet at some point.
Okay, that's it.
I can hear. So, guys, let us know. Hopefully there's not any volume issues in the show, but please go ahead before we get started, because Liz here's her TikTok right here, because she's a brave one. And I'm not on TikTok, guys, so that's why I haven't clicked follow, because I'm not on TikTok because I'm old. So please go ahead, follow her here as well. And Liz, like, I mean, you are so smart. The way you're able, the one thing that gets me about TikTok is you have to do things so quickly. Like you only have up to 3 minutes to say what you need.
That's the max. That's the max. And if you want your video to actually get seen, they recommend doing like 15 seconds. So you literally have to say what you're going to say, or at least kind of allude to what you're going to say so people get interested. And come and look at the rest of your stuff, which is why I started the YouTube channel, because you can't say hardly anything in 15 seconds.
Well, you're creative though. And I noticed on TikTok, it's so you have to be so good at putting the visual up, pointing out what you need to point out, and making people think. pointing at it. You guys remember, I don't know if you saw this, Catherine, if it made its way over to the United Kingdom, but this was summer of 2020, and I'll have to be careful about how I say this, but he became known as the ramen guy.
Yeah.
It was so funny. I actually have it saved on my phone because it was talking about like basically our First Amendment rights to peacefully protest. And anyway, you guys probably have seen it. I'll see if I can find a link to share it in the description box below if you haven't, but it was so fast and he was so witty. And I feel like that's what TikTok is. You have to be so fast and witty and clever to get your message out in that short amount of time.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's a great advertising tool, I would say. Yeah. Like anybody, especially like musicians, I'm like, why aren't you on TikTok? Like your stuff will get seen so quickly. Like it's, you know, just putting a little soundbite of your music, like the best part of it, and then people go and listen on another platform. It's the best form of advertisement, I'd say, in a sense. Like I don't really use it as advertisement, but I just use it as a tool to kind of just get to the point, you know.
So I wanted to ask you, Liz, so how did you get started did you start your TikTok when this scandemic came about? Is that when you started?
Yeah. So I originally wasn't posting anything political. I was just posting stuff about my family. And because I had just had my son. My son was born right before everything shut down. And so I was like becoming a new mother like in this crazy world. And I was just like, I need an outlet of some kind. So I started doing that. And then once I started to just be like, this is ridiculous. Like, I need to start, like, I started just pointing people to like Charlie. And because I was following him at the time, and I mean, I still am, but I just kind of felt like it was time to start saying something, because I am pretty reserved. If you can believe it. I don't like confrontation very much. And so putting myself out there and expressing what I believed and what I thought and the rabbit holes that I had gone down for so many years before all of this happened was huge for me. And it still is. I still am kind of like terrified every time I post something slightly controversial. But yeah, I started posting just things about, you know, just stating a question pretty much, because people are like, wait, what is she talking about? Because like on TikTok, you can't really say much. And then people would start asking me questions, and then my videos would go viral. And then I started getting more and more followers, and they're like, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. And so I was just like, okay. And then Charlie ended up finding me on TikTok. I went on his show. And he was just like, I love what you're doing. Thank you so much. Like, please keep doing it, you know? And so I did. And that has just been this kind of journey that was very unexpected and very out of character for me. But it has 100% molded me into who I am today. And I'm loving the person I am today for sure. But yes, I did start right when everything happened.
Now, you told last time we spoke, Liz, because you actually just got back from the UK because your sister lives over there. And we used to do shows regularly. And of course, you took a little bit of a break, but you told me something, you told me on text message, and then we talked about it on our episode, how you kind of just recently got like activated. Like, yeah, like almost ascension yourself.
Yeah, I feel like what are you doing? Come here. I feel like I've been activated slowly. Like there's been a progression of it, but I felt like when I was in England, I kept getting in tarot what they call the tower moment. Like I kept hearing that in my head, and I don't know that much about tarot. I watched Janine, and that's about it. But I just know from what she talks about, like the tower moment card is like, you know, the moment, your moment kind of thing. And I just kept hearing in my head, this is your tower moment. This is your tower moment. And I was like, what does this mean? I don't know why this is my tower moment, but great. And yeah, I feel like something just switched when I came back home. And it wasn't like I was trying to get to any certain point or try to make anything happen. Like I wasn't actively trying to like be my best self as like, you know, people are always trying to grow and evolve and whatnot, but I wasn't even trying. It was just something literally switched on in me. And I just feel like a totally different person. I feel like so much more powerful, and that I can just handle anything that comes my way now. It's kind of strange.
That's amazing. And have you mentioned when you started your TikTok channel and started sort of really having the confidence to express your opinions about what and your thoughts about what was happening. How was that received by your close friends and family?
Honestly, my family was very supportive because they're all on the same kind of page, which is amazing, honestly, because I know that people do not have that experience right now. But yeah, I'm very thankful that my inner circle of family, at least, is very much on the same page. And then with friends, it's kind of a weird, I mean, I'm sure you know this because you have had children, but it's kind of a weird thing that happens once you have kids. Like your friends kind of go away anyways. So it's just kind of, I like pegged it to motherhood and not so much like what I was talking about. And it's really sad because I've never really connected with my friends on the same level as like I connected with Brice. Just because I didn't really express exactly what I was always thinking or what I believed in conspiracy theory wise or, you know, whatnot. And so it wasn't really that big of a jolt to me, just because I became a mother when it all happened and my life was turned upside down anyway. So I wasn't really even focused on friends at all. But since then, I always approach it like if any of my friends that don't believe what I believe, which plenty in my age group are very asleep, which is so sad. And it made me so sad, which is one of the reasons I just kept going. So I was like, I want to be an example if I can. Yeah, it was kind of, I always approached it. If they ever had questions, I would just talk to them and just being like, this is what I believe. Oh, hi, cat. Oh, I used to have a black cat. I would be like, this is what I believe. This is why I believe it. This is what I found in my research. Like, if you don't believe it, it's fine. You know, I'd never like try to push it on anyone. And that opened up the conversation so much more than just being like, why did you vote for him? Like, what is wrong with you? Do you not see that he's evil? Like, you know, kind of thing. So I feel like my friends have been some of them are just now discovering that I know all this and think about all this stuff, which is hilarious. And they're like, Liz, I had no idea. Like, what the heck? And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot you don't know.
You're like, I'm kind of a big deal. Low key, I'm kind of a big deal. I'm kind of a big deal.
I recently just told one of my friends, she's not on TikTok at all. But I recently told her, I was like, yeah, like I have a pretty big following. Stuff like that. And she was like, what? Who are you? I was like, sorry. I just didn't think it was like relevant to talk about.
It's like you're Batman, you're Batwoman. Yeah. You got like this secret life where you're this.
That's honestly like a theme of my life. I've always felt like I was supposed to be undercover in a sense, and just kind of plant seeds for people and not be so like blatant about everything. And that's what because I mean, growing up in a religious world, it was always like, tell people about Jesus, you know, like you gotta
evangelize. Yeah.
And I was like, but what if I just like have a good conversation with them and like they realize I'm nice and then they want to find it for themselves, like, you know, like maybe they realize I'm different and they want to like search out why maybe that is, you know, like find it for themselves instead of me like just railing it in them. And so like I always felt weird about the whole like evangelizing thing and whatnot. And so I was like, I just think I'm a seed planter. I'll just accept that. So yeah.
That kind of leads me. Oh, go ahead, Catherine. Sorry.
Yes. Well, no, carry on because mine's moving on to some of your creative stuff. So
speaking of, I'm glad you brought religion into it because one thing that fascinates me about you, Liz, and I think we're very similar in the sense that we both grew up in the Deep South. We both kind of come from the same. We understand the Bible Belt. We understand the social norms and customs around that culture of the Bible Belt. And one thing that's really fascinating about me to you, Liz, is that you have a deep, really genuine passion for God. And it's not the church. You conversations we've had, you are like, it's almost like you're in wonder at the spiritual world. Oh, look, there you go. Yeah. And I think that your passion for, in my opinion, from what I see, your passion for truth when it comes to spirit and who we are in relationship to spirit is kind of what is underlying driving your need to put things on TikTok. Because Catherine and I have spoken about that. You know, at the end of the day, all this political education, everything like that is really just symptoms of the main thing, which is the spiritual battle. And so you kind of got that first, it seems like at a very young age, and then realized all these other things were happening as symptoms of the bigger thing. So you talked a lot about the kingdom doctrine and the kingdom. Can you explain to our people that will lead into your other creative passions, your passion for God and our source, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, someone once asked me to like tell my story of like when I met God, like in a church setting. And I was like so confused by that answer, or that question. So I was like, I've always known him. Like, there's not a specific time where I was like, I met God, you know? And I, like, in a sense, I feel like that's a privilege in a way, because I wasn't really born with that shield over me. And like my first word when I was like, my first word other than like mommy and daddy was angel. Like I would look up and say, angel, angel kind of thing. It was like, I always was aware of the spiritual realm around us. What, Bubba? He's wanting attention. Do you want to play with my rocks?
She gives him her crystals to play
Let him play with my crystals. There you go. But yeah, I always was aware of the spirit realm, is what we would call it growing up. And I mean, I remember telling my mom that, you know, Jesus was sitting on my bed and I would talk to him, kind of thing. Like, it was just one of those things where I never felt like there was a disconnect from source, God. And it was always strange to me that people felt so disconnected from him, him, whatever you want to call him. And so it's just one of those things of like, I've felt lied to my entire life about everything, because I question every single thing that the Matrix has put over us, like school, like why we learn things in school that we learn, or even why we have to go to school when, you know, like I was a little rebel, like in my own little way. There's just so many things that I questioned growing up that we know now are, you know, part of the dark side. And it was just one of those things that I like came into this realm knowing. I told Brice on the last video we did, I just feel like I kind of ascended to a certain extent. And for the purpose of raising the vibration of other people, like planting that seed to where they can start their journey. Because I have a theme of starting things. Every business I've ever worked for has been a small business that I helped raise up until they got really successful, and then I left. So it was just kind of like, I always felt like, you know, you could call it an empath, but at the same time, I knew that I wasn't supposed to take on that. And that was part of like staying in the frequency that I was originally here for, and connecting with God in a way that most people don't think of. Like, I literally just have conversations in my head all the time, and I didn't realize that was weird until somebody was like, that's schizophrenic. And I was like, I don't think it is.
I do that too, girl. I talk to God's source all day long. Usually it's like, why did you make this person? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. What is wrong with them? Can you do something, please? But yeah, like I've always been on a search for truth, because I just feel like everything's such a lie. I've always been skeptical of everyone. Like, my mom used to say that I used to just look at people like with this like are you like, there's something about you I don't like. I used to have this like terrible face that she would get really embarrassed about. Like this look I would give to people because I could just like, she was like, you could just see right through them. I was like, yeah, I pretty much could. I always could feel the energy of someone, and like if I didn't like them, I didn't like them. And it's very much carried out into the rest of my life and world. And if I don't feel energetically like we're aligned, I'm just like, no. But it's been, I mean, it's just one of those things I'm trying to keep this on. I'm going on so many rabbit trails, but I'm trying to keep this on your question. But I just always felt a connection. There's never been a separation to me because the spirit world has always been real. I've seen beings all my life. I've, orbs, lights, like just so many things. Like in the religious world, they call it a seer, whatever. Kind of, we're all talking about the same thing, but, and it's been really freeing the past couple of years, just kind of realizing that we're all talking about the same thing and I'm not crazy, and, finding a community online of people that are very much energetically aligned. And it's just given me even more of a drive to share and express the things that I just know innately and think about or just get like downloaded to me. Because anyways.
Oh, it's wonderful to have that, and it just must be especially now that you're a mum as well, that's so important, isn't it? Because you're going to, son's going to grow up with that.
Well, he's already going eyes, mouth, like pointing at the ceiling, and I'm like, okay, yeah, there is something up there, buddy. You're right. Say hi.
Oh, that's so cute. So you've got lots of other passions in terms of expressing your creativity, haven't you, with your art and your t-shirt, your magazines. Can you talk us through how you got started with those and how it helps you really fulfill your joy in life?
Yeah, it's been a long journey, but I mean, I have always been super creative. I mean, as soon as I could, like, I was singing first. And, because that's like the one thing you can start to do as a child. I was singing first, then I started dancing and acting and painting and drawing and then creating. I would draw clothes. I have like a book that I drew when I was 7 that was like a design, like a collection of clothes. And, it's always just been one way to like get my truth out without being so in your face about it. And that's exactly what I've done with my t-shirt, sweatshirt line on here. It's one of those things I definitely, I started to, I was working a part-time job at a ballroom dance studio. I taught ballroom dance when I was pregnant with my son. And then I obviously couldn't really teach while having my son on this side of the earth, on this side of my body. And so my boss was like, well, you can do like front desk stuff and, you can bring him with you. So I brought my son with me to work for like 17 months. And I hated it because it was so hard because I was not able to really get any work done and, just trying to work and take care of a baby at the same time. It's not super easy. So I said this actually on one of my recent YouTube videos, but I was talking about how I watched a video of this lady talking about how if you're in a place where you're stuck, just start telling yourself, like when you start complaining, no, I'm choosing this. And I was like, okay, like I feel like I'm very stuck because I was waiting for the world to change. I was waiting for, the whole like money reset thing. I was just waiting for anything to happen, and not stepping into my power at all. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing this. Like anytime I start complaining at work, I'm going to say, I choose this. And I did. And then I was like, why am I choosing this? it just brought up that question in me. And I was like, there are so many other things that I could do. Like, I'm creative. There's so many ways you can make money online now. Like, you know, why don't I try to figure something out? So then literally I just came across like how to like do this essentially, like, you know, designing t-shirts. And I kind of watched a few like tutorials and whatnot. And I was like, I could do that. Like, there's so many things that I want on t-shirts. I'm like, oh, that's a great t-shirt. That's a great t-shirt. And so I started making my line essentially. And I started to put things that instead of just, you know, I could easily make Mr. T sweatshirts and they would, you know, sell out probably, you know, but I wanted to actually create something that had meaning behind it for me, and did kind of plant the seeds for people. And it's very much what I did when I was younger with like designing clothes and whatnot. And it's a step in the direction that me and my husband want to go. My husband's father is a amazing tailor, and every time we're over in Mozambique, where he's from, he makes these custom outfits for me. I just draw them up and he makes them. And we want to eventually have a store in Mozambique that he makes custom clothes, and, you know, have a way essentially for to support his family without like just giving them money. You know, give them some kind of dignity and let them do something they love, because he loves making clothes for people. And he's very creative and he can teach other people. So this is kind of the step in that direction. It's kind of fulfilling different areas slowly. And it's been an amazing thing, because the more I create, the happier I am. And I never knew that I needed that. You know, like when you become a mother, you put pretty much everything that is of you aside, especially when they're very little. And I just needed an outlet so badly to express myself creatively, because I've heard that the power of creativity, if you don't actually let it out, can eat you alive pretty much. And I think that is a symbol of what's going on in the world right now. Because I feel like we're so caught up in the matrix and the 9 to 5 and we just got to make money to survive mentality, that no one's creating and no one's, you know, sharing what's inside of them with the world. And it's essentially causing disease, I think, because there's just so much in them that's not being let out. It's like creating like a tornado effect in their bodies. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to do with my line. I pretty much design something every day. I don't put everything out because obviously not everything's meant. She's got one of them on now.
Y'all know I cut all my shirts. I am endlessly creating my reality. I have tons of Liz's t-shirts. They're my favorite t-shirts. And I do, that's one thing. And I don't know if y'all can see, my computer is having a hard time pulling up some of the images, freaking Mercury retrograde, of course. But I love how you were saying, like, you could have just gone and put a bunch of Mr. T sweatshirts up and they would have sold like hotcakes. But again, this kind of goes back to something that Catherine and I have talked about, that even though we're so freaking grateful to Mr. T and like so grateful, we understand it's not necessarily about just him or about the Kennedys or about Princess Diana. Even though we're so grateful that they kicked the ball off for us, it's about all of us. It's about all of us consciously making these decisions. Like this sweatshirt says awaken. And all the
I have that under this.
Oh yeah.
You're pointing out all of my shirts today, like without even knowing.
I hope they'll pull up. So, okay, some of them. So here's the It's All a Pantomime, which is Charlie Ward's saying. I have that shirt too.
I asked him if one of my followers was like, "Can you design a Charlie Ward shirt?" I was like, "Sure." So I made it and then sent it to Charlie and asked his permission and everything. It's got his name on it. He was like, "Absolutely, go for it." So it's blessed by him. So, you know.
And it's Pope Charlie Ward, Cardinal Charlie Ward. I'm just kidding. It's got Alice in Wonderland looking beyond the veil, right? It's like she's looking behind the curtain. And I have this sweatshirt, born for a time such as this. And that's obviously from the book of Esther. Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. And I know we've talked about that a lot. Catherine and I have, how we get, I mean, even with the last round table we did with David and Medina, about how sometimes this can be exhausting, but you were made for this. And so I have this one as well. I have a lot of her shirts, guys.
Yeah, Brice has been like my biggest supporter.
I love them though, because again, it's not like, I have a couple of, I have a Mr. T shirt that I absolutely cannot wear in Atlanta because I can't do it. So I wear it. I can wear it in Florida, but I can't, but with these shirts, you're right. You can just, and they're timeless too, because, it's all, explain the seated shirts as well. I know you've explained this on my channel before, but the seated, what is that?
Yeah. So that kind of goes back to your other question that I realized I didn't answer. It's essentially like, so stepping from like religious mindset to kingdom mindset, just essentially realizing that you are seated, it's in the Bible, it's like you're seated in heavenly places. So if we are the DNA of God, of the divine, then we are rulers and kings and priests and whatever you want to call it. And, they all have thrones, essentially. So being seated in that place of authority to where you're not a victim and you're essentially taking control over your life and your world, is essentially like, I think the goal that we should all have, is just kind of taking charge of who we are and realizing who we are, and just being firm and planted in that place of peace and seated there no matter what's going on in our world, and kind of dictating and legislating, to make things better.
Yeah. I love it, Liz, because what I love is, you said earlier on about how your role's always been to plant the seed, and with all of your designs, you are truly opening up a conversation.
Right.
And the conversation based on the individual can flow in so many different ways. And that is just so fantastic, because I think what Brice and I spoke before about how we've moved past this time of whatever side of the fence you look at, you sit on, and there's every shade of grey in between. It's not our job to tell anyone what to think. But when you have these open conversations, everyone gets something out of it.
Yeah. I've had some people that bought my shirts. I just kind of like ask them like, what do you think it means? Kind of thing. And it's awesome to see their perspective on it, because I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that, but it totally could mean that too. Like whatever you want it to mean, it's just a way of expressing my truth is helping other people express their truth, and in a covert kind of way,
Yeah, but there, you have the 7 to it. Is it eternity or infinity? I had that shirt as well, but I can't remember. That was great.
7 into eternity.
Yeah, and that talks about you want to explain that one as well?
Yeah, that's I mean, in my world, we call it the 7 spirits of God, and they're represented by the rainbow, and you could even say they're represented in your body as the chakras, and essentially they're beings that it's like wisdom, might, understanding, fear of the Lord, spirit of the Lord, counsel, and knowledge. And I think that kind of like in the other spiritual terminology, they're your guides or your spirit team or whatever you want to call it. It can look different for other people, but I call them the 7 spirits of God because that's just what I've always known them as. But they essentially are with you even before you're born. My voice is going out. They're with you even before you're born, and they go with you through eternity, essentially. Like they're always with you. You're never alone. Because we have this mentality that we're alone in this world, and we're not at all. There's so many things that exist around us that we can't see. And I just wanted to kind of create a representation of that because the shirt kind of looks like you're going through space. So it's like dimensional type of thing. I don't know if I said that clearly.
No, but how beautiful is that? If somebody, if I had that shirt, if I were to wear that shirt and someone were to stop me and to explain that to someone, that you never know, like you're right. So many times we do feel very alone. and to know that even if a human being isn't around you, spirit is, and that you're not an accident. You're here on purpose, and you have purpose. And that's the biggest thing that your shirts and your collection shows. Again, that's why I talked about your passion with God to kick it off, is because you have that passion for people to understand how special they are. And you see that through your shirts. Yeah.
And even with finding the truth, it's just kind of like, I just feel like my mission in life is to find the truth, like so much more intensely than maybe other people. Like, I can't go about my life just being like, oh, I don't know if it's true or not. Like, I have to figure it out. I have to. It could be the Aries in me, but I just feel like there's just this fiery burning thing that's just like taking me through this dimension that we're in, that's like, we have to search out every possible avenue to find it, which is why I've even, like, over the last, it's really been the last couple of years, that, like I was saying earlier, that everything, we're all talking about the same thing. You know, like in Hinduism, in Christianity, in, you know, the Muslim culture, like, we're all talking about the same thing. Like, we're all talking about God. We just have a different way to describe it. And it's been so freeing for me to realize that, because growing up in the religious world I've been in, you know, this is bad, this is good. And I was just like, that's just so limiting. Like, I hate that. I hate that so much. Like, I'm bored with that. I'm so bored. And yeah, it's been, I just feel like the closer you get to source God, the more free you become. So that's how I know that I'm like on the right track. And if I can help other people discover that freedom, I'm going to do it.
That's lovely. That's absolutely amazing. And we've spoken loads of times, haven't we, Brice, about this black and white thinking is just so limiting. And as you were saying, it's actually seen as a mental illness, because there's nothing like that. I mean, like gorgeous pumpkin here. He's amazing and he's perfect. But I don't think mice think that, because he'll still go out and catch mice. You know, so there's so many different ways at looking things through a different perspective. And we're not meant to be a black white. I mean, how boring would that be if that's the world we lived in?
I get bored. I got bored with religion, and I mean, I was like in a charismatic world, and I remember going to a conference and being like, I know why people think we're crazy. And God, if this is all there is, I'm done. I'm like out. This is not enough. Like, there's got to be more. And then I've told Brice before, but I've kind of from there went into like what I call like more kingdom mindset of the kingdom of God and the ever expanding kingdom of God and universe and whatnot, instead of this, oh, when we die, we'll go to heaven. Great.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I get that. I think you're so right, because it does liberate. I know Stephanie has talked about this a lot before, when the chains of that mindset kind of shift in you and come off of you. It's so liberating, because, you know, and I think a lot of religions, not just Christianity, kind of put that guilt and shame into you. But when you realize that that's not who you are enough, and you were created by source, it is very liberating. And I know Catherine and I, we've spoken about like extraterrestrial life. And I think I'm like you, Catherine, before this whole thing, I didn't really care if there were aliens or not. I was like, there probably are, but I'm more concerned about like this planet. I'm more concerned about that ghost in my house. But then I know when I started covering this stuff on the Dark Outpost, we got so much backlash from very conservative Christians, because the idea of there being like an all-encompassing universe beyond our own understanding was like too much for them. And so it does show that limit. But when you break through that limit and you see the possibility of Palladians, of all these different life forms, how great God is, source is, creator is, and how you are just as much a part of that as they are. That's how important you are. You're not an accident. You're not just some spoof of nature. Like, you literally were put here on purpose, just like they were. And I just applaud you, because I think when I was because you're a lot younger than me, when I was your age, I did not have that confidence that you have when it comes to understanding what you, I don't think I really understood what I believed at that point. So that speaks to the maturity of your soul. It also says that age is just a number, guys, because unless it's a child, then it's not good. But
there you go.
You know, unless it's a child, it is not okay.
Big water, yeah.
But no one's starting rumors.
Yeah, no. I just want to. We know how YouTube works. Like, we just want to clarify that. I'm talking about the philosophical understanding of knowing God, of knowing truth. You know, it doesn't matter what, you know, you have a deeper understanding than most 40, 50, 60-year-olds do. And you found that level of liberation, that Empress, I think of the tarot cards, that Empress card, the most powerful, one of the most powerful cards in the deck. You understand, you have and I think part of understanding, I know Catherine and I have talked about this too, part of having an understanding is knowing that there are things you don't understand. And knowing that there are things you don't know and being okay with that. And when you're okay with that, you would then become powerful. You know?
That's the most freeing thing, is like, I might believe this today, but I might believe something totally different tomorrow. And I accept that. So the people that accept me will accept that.
Yeah.
I just think that is just so important. And what makes me, I mean, I'm just smiling throughout all of this because I just think, for you to be a young mum and to have this level of awareness and this sort of attitude, it just gives me such hope for the future, not just for yours, because the enjoyment that you're going to get. I mean, just seeing you here and in all your other videos I've watched with you and Brice, I love the fact that Levi's there with you. I love the fact that you're communicating with him and giving. I just think it's such an example. I don't want to be an odd man saying, oh, you're such an example, but it's so lovely to show people that there's a different way of doing things. Because I grew up where it was like, you couldn't possibly take your child to work. You couldn't possibly, you know, children were to be seen and not heard, which never worked with me, which is why I was always in such trouble. But it's just wonderful seeing you creating this life for you and your family. Honestly, I really do applaud you. And so many people are going through this decision at the moment about whether to take their children out of school, what to do with their lives. And this is why we want to talk about people's creativity. And you are the perfect example of just saying, explore this.
Yeah. What about what my day saying? Listen, come here. Yeah, I feel like it's become what? Okay, I might have to change locations. I just think it's become such a place of power for me. And in the beginning, it wasn't just trying to be a mom and navigating all that encompasses. And I think that's kind of what happened with going to England, was it just switched something in me of like, wait, I can handle way more than I think I can. And that's been such a huge place of power for me. Because honestly, traveling with a toddler is a little insane. Come on, honey, come here.
Yes, I know that feeling.
Especially internationally traveling. I gotta come here, Baba.
You know, we were talking, you told me that Levi had a meltdown at TSA, and I was like, well, I'm in my 30s and I've had meltdowns at TSA too, so it's fine. It's totally fine. So
oh, I know. And it's like, when you let go of that expectation, don't you find, Liz, of when you let go of the expectation of what other people think about you, your child, how they're behaving and everything, then it just becomes so much more fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And just getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that's extra hard just makes everything so much easier. And it's funny because I learned that when I was in film school. I was terrible at comedy improv, and I knew that I was. But instead of just like, you know, not wanting to do it and just hiding away, I would volunteer first to do it. I'd be like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm getting it over with. I'm going to be the first one to volunteer because I know that I'm not good at this. And so I would push myself out of my comfort zone on a daily basis. And I got to where I loved doing that. And that launched me into a much more powerful place. And I kind of forgot that. And then what's up?
I was like, we need to like talk about this more, because this has to do a lot with like people trying to find their passions too, about going into a place of being uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, something also I've learned is pain is powerful. It's extremely powerful. I mean, childbirth, I mean, it creates a human, come on. But I've learned that to not run from pain, that pain is actually my friend. And I'm sure in yoga, you understand that, because it has, every time I've gone through like a terrible, dark moment, dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it, I feel like I essentially like shift timelines and like get on board with like who I really am supposed to be. And so I've started to learn to not run from pain, as most people do, not run from being uncomfortable, because it's like it's literally like the tension of a slingshot. Like the more tension there is, the more you're propelled into what you're supposed to be doing, or, you know, something that's going to completely change your life in a positive way.
That's actually the first sutra of the second pada, is accepting pain as help for purification. And we talked about with that David and Medina, that resistance creates friction creates change. And I tell my students all the time, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you're right. When you put yourself into those positions that challenge you, you find things out about yourself. And that's what because people, I know, Catherine, you've probably gotten the same with the series we're doing, where people are like, well, I don't know what I like anymore. But if you put yourself into positions, don't be afraid to fail. You know, failure is actually sometimes just as important as succeeding, because without failure, you don't learn. You know, you don't shift and change. And I love that you said that you were in film school, and you consciously, intentionally signed up for something that you knew was like your weak point. You know, and of course people don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to put themselves into a position where they look like they're struggling, but to be conscious enough to put yourself in that position just to see what's going to happen. Like, and what you learn from that is like, I really hope people, like, to me, when you said that, I was like, ding, ding, ding. This is like one of the most important things you've said, is like, well, you've said a lot of important things, but like, this is such an evolved soul to be able to, at such a young age, to be like, I'm going to put myself into this position of controlled discomfort so that I can learn more about me and see what sparks fly up and what I'm actually capable of, you know?
And I was 18 or 19 at the time. And what's amazing is I was just doing it out of a means of survival, like just trying to get through, because I had to be in that class. It was just like you had to pick one or the other, and that was the only one left. And I had to be in it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. I don't care if I look stupid. Like, I obviously am gonna fail because it was bad. It's one of those things, like being an older soul. It's like, I don't find certain humor funny.
Yeah.
And people my age do. I'm like, that's not funny. I don't know why. So that's why it was so bad, because I was like, I don't find that funny, and I don't want to just like use profanity to make something funnier. Like, it's just kind of like, it was just confusing to me. It was like almost like I felt very autistic in a sense. I was like, I don't get it. What is happening? But I would just make myself go first, because then I was like, at least I have nothing to compare it to. I don't have anybody to compare it to. If I just go, like, everybody else is compared to me afterwards. So that's fine.
Take it over the table.
It ended up being like the best and the most freeing thing that like became a huge life lesson. And even to the extent of like, you know, almost 10 years later, when I was giving birth to my son, or I guess, 8 years later, I told my midwife, because she was like, you know, I was trying to do an unmedicated childbirth at home. And she's like, okay, well, you know, like, there are things you can do to like see what your pain management is, like what kind of, you know, like how well you can handle pain and whatnot. And I was like, okay, so I was just like, I'm not afraid of pain. Like, I'm not scared of being uncomfortable. She was like, really? Yeah, no, like, I think I can handle it. Like, you know, childbirth is not even like a scary thing for me. It's like afterwards of being a mother. Like, that's what's scary. Like, the pain is fine. The other stuff is what terrifies me. But even she was just like, well, that's a great mindset to go into childbirth with. It's just, you know, that it's the pain, you know, won't last, and I'm not going to be scared of it, and it'll actually produce something really good. And it literally all stemmed from the time of me being uncomfortable in film school. Like, you know.
Oh, it's fantastic. Do you think, Liz, that part of the reason we're in this mess that we're at, or even though touch wood we're coming out of it, is because a lot of people are not able to have those difficult conversations and learn?
Absolutely. I mean, we're so conditioned to just be distracted, and we never, like, no one ever sits quietly with themselves anymore, and deal with their inner demons, their trauma, their inner child that needs healing, whatnot. No one just sits and lets those thoughts come up. I mean, there's like screens in cars nowadays, like for children to like watch something while they're driving. There's, you know, airplanes, we have screens. There's, you know, radio. There's always something that you can be putting into you to distract you. And that's very much the world that we live in. I mean, I remember telling my friends, can I go back in the room now? He's like, why are you looking at me like that? I remember telling my friends that I like never listened to something. I like always just drove in silence. And they were like, what is wrong with you? I was like, I like my thoughts. I like listening to myself think. And that's when like so much gets revealed to me. Okay, we need to go back. And they were just like really confused. Like, honestly, growing up, I was just the weird one. I was just like the weird, like, I don't know how to describe it, but I was just always just like doing things that like old people would do. Like they would tell me, but it was like, I realized that I just didn't want to be distracted. Like there was so much more benefit in just letting myself be, so that whatever was talking to me, I could actually absorb and understand and think about and process. And I went through a really long time of being essentially like a hermit, like just kept to myself in the quiet all the time. Like when I wasn't working or whatnot, I like studied quantum physics. I just dove into like everything that I could. And it very much just launched me into what I'm doing today and like talking about today. Because I had all that time to myself. It was right before it was like 2 years before I had Levi. But I feel like that is it for sure is one reason why our world is the way it is, because everybody's so disconnected from themselves. Yeah. And that's the goal, I think, of the dark side is to get us distracted and disconnected from our divinity, essentially.
So how are you feeling about where we're at globally now? You know, I know it's a big question, but you started by saying how good you were feeling. I feel the same. How are you feeling, Liz, about where we're at now as humanity?
I mean, honestly, speaking not from this past week of Mercury retrograde and full moon, I'm feeling great. Otherwise, this week has been rough, but it's been very healing. But I feel just the start of this like new year, what we call the new year. I have just had this like excitement bubbling up in me, like I haven't had in ever, I don't think. Just really being excited for the future and just ready to actually like start the new world. And like I'm getting like the projects that I want to do like ready in my head, and setting myself up to like be ready to work, essentially. So I think so many people are just like, oh yeah, everything's going to change and it's going to be kumbaya. And I'm like, no, we got to get to work. What are you talking about?
But it's going to be a different kind of work because we're going to be following our passion, our dharma. Like you started off saying that you want to bring like you with your in-laws, because they are tailors, and you want to give them not only a chance to like provide, but to be creative in their and what they can do, their talents, because they're talented as well. And so like that passion is coming forth from you through, and we have this really screwed up, I think the Western world in general just has this really screwed up view on work. Like we think that work should be something that is like stressful and not fun, but necessary, that we got to fight for. But that's not what dharma is. You know, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. When you're working on something you're passionate about, you can create, and like the time flies, and it's not even, you're not even counting the hours to see how much money you're making. You're actually enthralled in the creation, and the opposite of war isn't peace, it is creation. And so it's like that different perspective on what we're going to be doing, because I don't believe, in my personal opinion, and I'm not a money expert, but I believe when we come into this new earth, the new financial system is going to make it so we're not lacking anything, that we're all going to be provided for by the universe, that as we're supposed to be. In a I don't, people say it's communism, not like that, in a very non-communistic way. We're all going to have our freedoms and our rights. And so therefore, if everything you have is provided for, what are you going to do? It's like, I think I told you in one show, Catherine, or maybe, I can't remember, but my best friend growing up, I remember being at her house and her dad said to her, if you didn't have anything to fear, if you didn't have to fear failure or whatever, what would you do? If nothing bad was going to happen. And it's like asking people, like, if you didn't have that fear of survival, if you didn't have that fear of providing for your family, what would you do? What would you create?
It's even, I kind of took that mindset of, I mean, I'm in a place where my husband has a full-time job, so I'm very blessed to be able to do it in this world that we're in currently. I'm hoping it changes for everyone at some point, but I'm very blessed to be able to, when I started thinking about what I wanted to do from home outside of going to that dance studio, I was like, what actually brings me life that won't feel like work, that can produce money? And I was like, clothing, that's what it is. And I love, like, fashion is, I mean, I don't like the world of fashion, but I love expressing myself through fashion. It's just one of those things. Like, my sister makes fun of me all the time because I'm like, oh, this looks cute together and this looks cute together. What if I wear this? And she's like, why are you so excited about this? I don't know. I just am. Like, it's just a part of me. I love creatively, like being able to put something on that I've created. I literally wear all of my own stuff. I'm like, ooh, I just made this one, I'm gonna buy it. And my husband's like, maybe you should wait a minute. Like, maybe you should wait till other people start buying it more, and then you have the money to buy it first. I'm like, but it's so cool. I'm so excited to wear it.
I love it.
It's just a part of me, though.
When you wear stuff that resonates with you. I mean, we all talk about words or energy and intent. And, you know, my favourite water bottle is one that's got lovely symbols engraved into it and things. And it is. And if you're wearing stuff, not only that you've created, but are giving a message out to the world that you want, that is going to have an effect, not only on your energetic field, but on everyone else that you interact with.
Yeah. And I can tell because I get compliments all the time on when I actually wear my own stuff. People are like, oh, I love that. And then when I wear something that I bought from a store, people are, no one says anything, kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, thanks, it's mine.
I did that. I made that.
Yeah, I can definitely tell energetically the difference. And it's powerful. It's one of those things of just like, at this point, I don't understand how people don't understand energy. I just don't. I don't know how it's not a part of their life or their thought process, Well,
the whole expressing yourself with clothing too. I get what you're saying, loving fashion, but not the fashion industry. And I had a cousin, he's about 10 years younger than me, but I remember when he was first, we were little. And I remember when he was first, in the South, you know, Liz, in the South, people dress their kids up, you know, big collars, like I had ruffled socks, like your hair is done perfectly. But my aunt allowed my cousin, when he first started dressing himself for like that year, just to let him dress himself, because it was like the one point in his life where he was going to be able to wear whatever he wanted, and no one was going to be a second about it. Oh, he would wear goggles to daycare. He would wear, you know, his clothes inside out mismatched. She was just like, I'm just going to let him express himself before he can't do this anymore, you know. But it is an expression. It is a way that you know, everybody's body is unique to themselves. And just like I like to cut my t-shirts, everyone has their own way of wearing things. And you can tell when someone's uncomfortable in their clothes. Like you can tell, you know?
Yeah. It's seriously a powerful thing. Like that's what I've tried to tell my family this, because I've like always been like the one they go to, they're like, does this look good? Does this look good? I'm like, well, do you feel good in it? Like that's the real question. And even just how people dress and carry themselves says so much about how they think about themselves. And that's why I like to express myself through it, because I'm like, this is how I think about myself. And, you know, I want that to come across that way. It's changed a little since I've been a mother, because you kind of just have to put on something like, this is so dingy now from all the stains and whatnot. But, you know, it's fine. This too shall pass. But yeah, I always, I try to, at one point my mom was wearing like a lot of like really loud stuff, like pink cheetah print and whatnot. And it was just, it didn't fit her personality. And I told her, I was like, you're screaming at people, Mom. Like, you're screaming at them to look at you. And she's like, huh. And then since then, she like never really like felt like she had to wear something like that to get attention, type of deal. Like she actually like took it. She was like, you're right. I think I am. But yeah, it's super powerful. I mean, everything really is. Anything that you consciously decide to put in your body, on your body, the way you do your hair, the way you present yourself in general says something. It just does. And you control what it says.
Well, if you could do something with a tail for me, I'd be really, really happy.
Oh, you have to, Liz. You have to.
Cat ears.
Yeah, because I've always thought losing our fur and tails was a big mistake. I still have my tail. I know I was meant to have one. So, yeah, let me know when that's available and I'll buy it in every colour going.
Well, I can see now beautiful, like, with a tail, sweatshirt with a tail at the bottom. That'd be cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Cool. Well, before we close out, I want to once again show everybody Liz's shop. We'll have the links down in the description box below. This is Oliviera by Elizabeth. And you actually do have a new feature where people can custom design their own shirt, right?
Yeah. So it started out with my grandma wanting me to make a few different shirts for her church group. And so I was like, okay, I'll just put a custom thing on it. But then I was like, you know what? If someone has an idea of something that they want on the shirt and I can like work with them to make it, I'll do that. Like, you know, like just kind of be open to that, because I love designing things. So,
and that gives people an outlet for their own creativity too. And again, guys, so Liz's channel is the Liz Olive Show on YouTube. She just opened it again. We will put those links down in the description box below. Here is her TikTok channel for those who are TikTokers. Is that what you call it, Liz?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't even work out Instagram, let alone TikTok.
I know, right? I'm still trying to figure out Twitter. So that's Olive Liz 333. Again, this is your 4th round at TikTok. So some of you I know already follow her here, but do go ahead and do her YouTube as well. And are there any more platforms, Liz? You are on Instagram. I know I follow you on both your private and your personal, not your private, but your personal and your business page here. So that's a good place for people to contact you as well, right? If they want to ask you about.
Yeah, I do also have a Telegram. If you want to follow me on there too.
Your Telegram channel.
It's linked in on my YouTube video.
Okay, cool. So it's in her YouTube videos. So guys, so there you go. So That was so fun. Honestly, like every episode we do
right.
of these, I'm like, I feel inspired. So
oh good. I'm like, I feel like that is part of just my mission in life is just to inspire people. So I'm glad it's happening that way.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure finding out more about you. Bye-bye, Levi.
Bye.
Oh, how adorable. I've got some special rocks as well with me.
Oh, some fun rocks.
Like it.
That one's really nice.
And even better, I've now got a pussycat in there. Can you see the pussycat? Pumpkin.
What's a Kit Kat say?
He's so magnificent, Pumpkin.
Meow.
Oh. Thank you so much. That's just been such a pleasure to get to know you better. And as I say, all links will be under the video.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, of course. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.